What's up, folks? Welcome back to TacticalTortoise. My name is Trevi, and today we've got a stealth update to Warhammer 40k. It hasn't yet been announced on Warhammer Community, but if you do have the Warhammer 40k app installed on your mobile device, you may find a little bit of an update waiting for you in the Play Store. First off, I want to apologize. I'm still fighting a chest cold and haven't had the chance to do my vocal exercises today, so my voice may sound a little haggard for this video. But last week we got announced a upcoming errata to Warhammer 40k to fix some bugs and stuff that was left off datasheets. So we were expecting an update to the game, but we weren't sure whether it would come with any balance implications, and it looks like it actually has. So if you go to your Warhammer 40k app, you go to, in my case, the Google Play Store, and you manually update, you'll find that, first of all, there are some organizational updates to the app. You can see that every faction is now organized by all of its indexes together, so its Combat Patrol and Forge World indexes are in a single category, but you'll also find many data sheets have been changed. First off, we saw a couple changes to Eldari, specifically to the Wraith Guard unit. Wraith Guard previously had an ability called War Construct, which allowed them to, when targeted by an attack, fire in response to that attack as if it were your shooting phase. They could use this not only in response to ranged attacks, but also melee attacks, as their weapons got the pistol characteristic when firing while engaged. They have lost that second clause of the ability. So instead of firing in response to all attacks, now if they're engaged because they fire as if it were the shooting phase, they are ineligible to shoot if they are currently in engagement range of an enemy, and since also they don't have any pistol weapons, they can't target anything with their attacks regardless. So it only functionally works against ranged attacks now. Now, what was the purpose of this change? What you could do with Wraith Guard previously was actually charge your opponent with them, because you're required to select targets with your melee weapons in the fight phase if you are engagement range of an enemy. The Wraith Guard would attack. Their attacks are okay, but not great, so they would most likely punch a guy or two to death and then consolidate and engage the target unit. The enemy unit would then fight, target the Wraith Guard with their attacks. The Wraith Guard would trigger War Construct and shoot them to death. So you could use this offensively as a way to shoot your Wraith Guard twice, once in the shooting phase and once in your own fight phase. That works no longer, and it also means that melee armies are potentially a little bit of a counter to Wraith Guard, since they won't be able to use their War Construct ability at all if the only thing you do is engage them in melee. Now, obviously, that's extremely hard because of Phantasm and the maneuverability that Eldar have, but it does remove an extremely powerful and unspeakably broken tool from the toolbox of the Eldari faction. In addition, the Spirit Seer that also attached to the unit has had its Tears of Isha changed so that previously it would reanimate every single command phase, so you would bring back a model during your own turn, and you would bring back a model during your opponent's turn, so you would get 2 Wraith Guard back to that unit every turn. So even trying to nickel and dime them not only would be triggering War Construct against you and getting you shot to death, but also wouldn't really do any damage because they would just respawn. That now only triggers in your own command phase, so their ability to regenerate has been halved. Now, the number 2 faction in the 40k meta right now is Genestealer Cults, and while they haven't seen the same success as Eldari, they're definitely, I think, on the radar as a faction that is potentially problematic, and one of their most powerful abilities was Cult Ambush. This allows you, when a unit is destroyed, you have to roll a dice, and on a 4+, or if it's a battle line unit, it happens automatically, you get a token representing that unit respawning that you get to place on the battlefield. Your opponent can try to destroy it by moving within 9 inches, but if they don't, one of your units that was ambushing would respawn touching that marker. Now, the problem was that touching the marker and 9 inches away from enemy models via Deep Strike were the only restrictions on placing those models. So you could, if you used tunnel crawlers, potentially put one model in base to base with the token and string the entire rest of the unit out almost anywhere on the table that you wanted to. So as long as you had large units like 10 or 20 models, you could put one dude on the token and then run them 20 or 30 inches across the table to jump on objectives, to movement block your opponent, to threaten overwatches, and it was incredibly obnoxious to deal with and almost impossible to stop. So Cult Ambush has been rewritten. Now it only allows the unit respawning to respawn wholly within 3 inches of the cult ambush marker. You can no longer string out far away from that marker. This gives you about a 7-inch diameter circle to fit your unit in, which is large enough to fit most units, assuming that you're not stacking a bunch of tokens on top of each other. So you also, as the Genestealer Cult player, have to be cognizant of not grouping your tokens too closely on the corner of the table, because if you are trying to bring back 20-man units, you can potentially have a problem actually regenerating those guys, and you might lose a couple to coherency problems. It's not a huge nerf. You still get a ton of models back, and if you don't have any way to interact with those cult ambush tokens as the opponent player, then you're probably still going to have to deal with these units respawning in annoying positions, but no longer are they just going to be hopping up in front of your army willy-nilly. Imperial Knights got a minor update to lay low the tyrants. Previously, the wording was that lay low the tyrants allowed each model, when selected to shoot or fight, to reroll a hit or wound of 1. The problem being that attacks in Warhammer 40k are resolved sequentially, and so effects that reroll hits or wound rolls will typically say that a hit roll or wound roll is rerolled of a specific result. So this was consistent with abilities that gave you rerolls on all of your rolls of 1, although it didn't appear that the intention was that's actually what it did. So it was rolled differently in different places and was highly inconsistent. Now it's been changed to a much cleaner, a single hit roll of 1 and a single wound roll of 1, not all your hit and wound rolls of 1. Necrons also got a couple of minor changes specifically to their data sheets. Cryptothralls now only give the fight on death ability to Cryptothral models in their unit. Previously, it was an open question whether or not they would give their fight on death to everything in the unit that they entered into, because they have a bizarre attachment ability where they attach into a unit but then become part of that unit rather than acting like a bodyguard and leader model. In addition, the Silent King got a little bit of an upgrade. He doesn't blow up his minions, so that's good. He can't deal an immense amount of damage to his own army for being shot at, so that's good. Last but certainly not least, the Transcendent Catan has gotten a massive buff. This thing now has the reanimation protocols ability. So it's going to be regenerating D3 wounds each of your command phases, potentially 2 D3 if it's near a reanimator. The reason that this is absolutely insane is that the Transcendent Catan might be one of the most difficult to kill models in the entire game currently, which in my opinion was why it didn't have reanimation protocols, so that you had to jump through hoops to actually repair it. But instead, it halves damage, has a 4+ invulnerable save, and because it can be equipped with enhancements, can take Sempiternal Weave to also have a 4+ Feel No Pain. So it's basically taking only 1 out of every 8 damage that you deal to it, since half of them will be ignored by the invulnerable save, half of them would be halved thanks to the half damage ability if you're not 1 damage or an odd damage number, and half of them will be ignored by the Feel No Pain. That now can then be regenerated. So you have to basically one-shot it to actually get that damage to stick, which is almost impossible for most armies in the game. The Transcendent Catan, I think, went from being already very widely played in most Necron builds to probably being a required include for Necrons. And if you are playing against Necrons, my heart goes out to you. Enjoy having a Transcendent Catan just chill in your army for the rest of time. Inky, what do you think about the Transcendent Catan being changed? You don't like it? Okay. Tyranids also saw a very minor change with the Barbagant unit being updated to now select 1 target that is an infantry unit with its Disruption Bombardment ability, reducing their movement. Previously, it was every target hit by their weapon, which in a unit of 5 models allowed them to split their fire and affect a ton of infantry across the table, and that is no longer the case. Now, on top of that, we got a bunch of other minor fixes across the game. Death Corps of Krieg now can equip meta packs. That's great. Spectrus kill teams can swap their bolter sniper rifles for las fusiles. Also good. Orc trucks now specify that they cannot transport Gazgul Thraka, which is a devastating blow, in my opinion. And the Grey Knight stratagem, Death from the Warp, now lasts until the end of its own phase. Now, whether or not there are any additional changes within this update, I don't know. I haven't gone through every single change in the entire game quite yet. So if there are any, put them down in the comment section down below. I'm sure that we'll get an actual official update PDF relatively soon, within the next 24 hours for sure. I am glad that it happened. It's nice to see Eldar and GSC getting a little bit of a love tap. Would have loved to have seen a change to Phantasm. That didn't happen, but it is what it is. You can only ask for so much, and a Wraithguard nerf out of the blue when I wasn't expecting one is definitely a nice little consolation prize. Anyway, thanks for watching all the way to the end of the video. Big thanks as well to everybody who supports the channel, either over on Patreon at patreon.com/TacticalTortoise, YouTube channel members, and Twitch subscribers. All you people are great, and I love you. Remember to keep it classy, folks, and have happy wargaming.